paid traffic engine to drive, consistent and predictable acquisition of new customers coming into your business. If this is your first video, I am doing a new video every day for 30 days on how to double your business in 30 days. I am a digital marketing consultant. I've worked with some top brands in the United States, and I get these exact questions all of the time. All the time, people are asking me, hey, I want to 10x my ROAS and I want to do it in less than 30 days. Oh, why can't we just wave a magic wand and get there? The reality is we have to go through all of these topics that I've been talking about here for several days in order to get there. Today is 8 or 9, and we're just starting paid traffic today, which tells you there's things that we have to do. I'm based here in Rio de Janeiro, so if you're around, let me know. And if you have any questions, as always, you can contact me on social media or leave a comment wherever you're watching this video. Today, we're going to talk about building a predictable, data-driven acquisition engine that can consistently convert your investment in advertising into customers. We want to do this reliably, profitably, and repeatedly. We're not looking to just chase some quick wins here. So the first thing to be mindful of is that the numbers will drive everything. The economics comes first. So every channel is just a buying opportunity. You trade ad spend for attention and customers. I think about it a lot like investing in the stock market. You have a bucket of money and you're deciding, where am I going to put this money to drive the biggest return for me? All right. Obviously, we can look at data. Stock traders don't just go pick blindly what they want to invest in, but it's very similar to that. Your numbers are going to drive everything. So before you start spending $1, you need to know your lifetime value and you need to know your target customer acquisition cost. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to get to that target customer acquisition cost. And then you'll know what you're expecting from profit, and you can baseline that and say like, okay, I want 3x ROAS or whatever it is. The math will drive all of your decisions. When you are creating new creative, when you're optimizing your creative, when you're deciding what channels to run, always start with the numbers. There's a lot of information that we have access to. So every time I start working with a new client, I look at the numbers and we map things out. If they've never spent before, I'll go to Google and I'll look at, okay, in personal injury law firms, what's an average CPM that I can expect? That's a bad example because it varies a lot by market, but get a good idea of like, what is my CPM going to look like, and then map out like what could you expect to see from performance here. Use this to decide your budgets, not just arbitrary numbers, not just say, hey, I want to spend $5,000 and see what happens. We're looking to build an engine here, not just like cherry picking off best ads. So I've talked about this conveyor belt system before. This is like a division of that conveyor belt. You're going to have a bunch of different pieces here that need to go together to build this system for you. So treat it like a machine, just like the rest of your business. We have various inputs, your creative, your offer, your audiences that you're hitting. You'll have different processes that are going on in there. You'll have your data and your testing, and then all the optimization decisions that will be made. This is just the introduction to paid traffic. We'll talk in a later video about optimizing paid traffic campaigns. And then you'll have your outputs, which should be predictable CAC and scalable ROAS. If you don't, you have to look at the elements within this paid traffic engine and look at the elements outside of your paid traffic engine. Because what we talked about yesterday is one of the biggest variables here. How good is your offer? How sellable your offer is? That is a major piece of what's going on here. How do we scale it? So when we start, we're looking for just one offer, one channel, one funnel. We don't want to test a ton of different things when we get started. Pick your best performer and test that in the channel where it makes the most sense. We'll talk more about how to pick the right channel to get started with, but pick one. Normally, it's Meta or Google. Meta works better if there's not a lot of direct search demand for it, and Google works better if there is a lot of direct search demand for it. Personal injury law firms. People go to Google and look for a personal injury law firm. Okay, Google might make most sense. If you're selling a product that you have to educate people on, that's more of an impulse buy, Meta might make more sense. First, scale your spend vertically. So when you have something that's working, increase your investment in those areas. Don't add new creatives, new audiences, anything like that at this point. Just add more budget to what's working. Watch those numbers and make sure those numbers hold as you add more spend. There is a ceiling on any given campaign or concept. And so you'll scale, and watch those numbers. And if those numbers drop, then you know you've reached that ceiling and you can look other places. Once we've done that, we'll scale horizontally. This is when we add new creative concepts, add new audiences, and start adding additional, I call it building out the account, right? So we go from having one campaign to, and that's really like we're looking for a winner, right? We have one campaign, we're looking for a winner. And then once we have that, then we start scaling out and building out more of the account with more campaign types and more audiences, etc. And then only look to add new channels into the mix once you have scaled this and it's holding steady and all the unit numbers, the unit economic numbers are holding. When you are budgeting, always start with your CAC in mind. To find your target customer acquisition cost, get your LTV, get your margin percentage, and then divide those by your desired ROI. So the example is if you have LTV of $300, a margin of 50%, an ROI target of 3x, then your target CAC needs to be $50. Take this also before you spend $1 and see, is it possible? You can calculate out all of these numbers, and I think I've done that in a previous number, and we'll probably do it again, where you can calculate it out and see like, okay, does it make sense for me to spend on this at all at my current performance, or do I need to adjust things a little bit? You have to take it with a grain of salt a little bit, especially if you're a very new brand, because if you're a new e-com brand and all your sales are coming from friends and family, your conversion rate is going to go down when you put paid traffic into it. Cold audiences are going to convert differently than warm audiences. This customer acquisition cost is going to dictate everything that you do. So if it's quite high, you need to wait a little bit longer. Your testing cadence will probably slow down. Your optimization cadence will also slow down a little bit. You need to have enough volume and statistical confidence to go into something. I mentioned channel selection. I map it out. What are my CPMs on Google, on Meta, on TikTok, on native for similar promos, and then see how does the math work if my conversion rates hold steady and my LTV and my CPAs, all of these hold steady. What does that look like? And then often we can bid with it. So you have a CPA bid and you can put your CPA target in there as your bid. Avoid vanity metrics, clicks, impressions. Most of these things don't mean anything. I talked about this in the KPIs video. You want to find the KPIs that are predictive of success. The ones, it's a gamble a little bit. The ones that are going to predict it. No one can wave a magic wand, and a good conversion rate doesn't always drive a good ROAS. But find the ones that you can use as a predictive measure and focus on those. The creative is the multiplier. It's like pouring gasoline on the fire. So the offer gets you attention, the creative earns the scale. I mentioned in an earlier video that your CPM at an aggregate can tell you how strong your offer is. If your total CPM on Meta is like $150, $90, I would say, okay, what do I have to change about my offer to pull that down overall? And then at an individual ad variant, it will tell you which ad variants are stronger or not. 80% of your success from ads is going to come from just the number of creative that you're testing, the volume of creative that you're testing. There's nuance when we get into the creative strategy with every channel. So we'll talk a little bit about it. It's not necessarily true like, oh, let's just make a slight tweak and put 100 videos out there. We want to test like unique creative concepts there. At scale, creative fatigue is your biggest enemy. Creative fatigue is a couple of things. It can be the number of eyes that have seen one individual video and the frequency that those people have seen it. So if one person sees the video 10 times, that's going to drive more creative fatigue than if 10 people see it one time. And another element here is that people report ads. They buy and they still see an ad, so they report it. They don't like it, so they report it. Those reports accumulate over time, and that drives creative fatigue. Another thing to think about is if your ads all look the same. So most people are not experts on our ads. They're not studying the little changes. And so if they look quite similar, people will think it's the same ad, and that will drive fatigue faster. So it's better to have ads that are very unique. They don't look exactly the same. That's going to help it last longer. I've worked with some brands with very strict brand guidelines where everything has to look the same. The design layout is the same. You can't change the template. You can't change anything. Those ads will fatigue faster and they won't scale as far. You want to have a testing cadence. It's a pipeline. Have a conveyor belt that's already moving here. You want to get a few new creatives into the account each week, and you want to test the building blocks of them. So test different hooks, test different visuals, test different CTAs, types of ads, whether you're working with an influencer or you're posting the content yourself. I test Meta has these optimizations that they can automatically apply to your ads. I test each one of those individually so I can build my stack of which ones do I want to use. And then kill the losers fast. It is not a laboratory. We're not doing science. Kill the comparative losers. Get some statistical confidence on it, not where one sale can throw the numbers in totally different direction, but kill the comparative losers and kill them quickly. Don't wait till you have statistical confidence, and a scientist would be happy. If it is a comparative loser, kill it. And then you have to keep your messaging congruent all the way through. One of the easiest ways for a campaign to underperform is where the creative doesn't make sense for the audience or the channel, and then the creative doesn't make sense with the landing page. It's like different promos, or it's created by different people. A lot of times agencies make this mistake where they have like a marketing manager who's working on the funnel build, and then they have some creative specialist who's working on ad creative, and those people are not aligned. And so then you have different messaging at different points. That's one of the easiest ways to drive underperformance with an ad campaign. And of course, it all has to match the audience. Tracking and attribution is super important. We said start with the numbers. That means you have to know what the numbers are. I like having multiple systems in place so I can compare and contrast what I'm seeing. The easiest one to get started with is the pixels that come with every major ad platform. Deploy the pixel, track your key conversion events, your core KPIs. With Meta, you need to have the conversions API in place also. Always use UTMs. Always test your page to make sure that the page isn't broken when you add the UTMs on. Check it in GA4. Use the offline conversions from GA4, sync it directly with your Google Ads account. And then use third-party tracking tools as well. Hyros, Wicked, and use the offline conversions to pump the conversions from those systems back into your ad account. Don't scale a campaign until you're confident in the numbers. If you don't know what's working, then don't increase spend. It's easy to say, oh, it's working overall, I'm going to increase everything 20%. Don't do that. Figure out what's working, what segments are working, and push there. You can't scale the ad account with a shotgun approach. You have to have a scalpel approach, and you have to know which segments are working and push in those areas. When I spend at scale, I have a huge Excel spreadsheet with all of the line items. This product, this channel, this campaign type, have it all broken out. What do the numbers look like so that you can allocate efficiently? It's very difficult to get an ad campaign to perform better. That's like the core of the job, but it takes a lot of work to get even 20% improvement in any given campaign. You can make huge improvements in performance by allocating effectively and saying, this channel is performing worse than this channel. I'm going to move my allocations to where it's working better. And yeah, don't scale it if you cannot measure it or if you don't have that visibility. Always stay disciplined. I wrote out my media buying process for new hires so that we can work off of the same guideline, and it actually is really helpful for me. We always make our decisions based off of percentage, right? It's like stock trading, right? You don't just go gamble and bet all in on some one line item. You increase here, you cut there, and you recalibrate. I am a believer in like a tap method. Don't crank and go all in on one area. Increase 20% today. See what happens. Increase 20% tomorrow. See what happens. And slowly move those budgets up more gradually. Meta requires that gradual movement of budget, but I think it's wise everywhere. And then while you're doing this, I'm watching two things. We talked about the predictive KPIs in a previous video. Those are what I'm watching most closely on these daily budget changes, but then watch your ROAS, your marketing efficiency ratio overall, and see how that moves. If you have a high AOV product, there will be volatility, so don't read too much into a strong day or a weak day. But watch what happens when you do that overall. As you increase spend, you want to see that hold steady. Okay, at different stages, you want to focus different ways. So if you're just starting out, get one profitable funnel and pick a channel to run with, right? If you're very small, you want one or two different channels that you're running with. As you start scaling, you can start adding channels into that mix. That's when we'll look at PMax and TikTok, etc. And then when you are approaching 100 million, that's when you need to start adding in more of these branding channels. So TV, billboards, display, native ads. Depending on your business, native might make sense earlier. Depending on your business, remarketing might make sense earlier. But typically when we start scaling, that's when we start beefing up and expanding that channel mix. So these things all play into each other, right? Your better offer will get you a higher CTR and a lower CPM. A higher CTR and a lower CPM is going to get your cost per visits on that page lower. Your cost per visits of your CVR holds steady, it gets you a lower CAC, and then you can scale off of that and push faster. Paid traffic success largely comes from the offer, and then the creative plays a role there as like the remainder. But first, focus on the offer. Make sure your offer is A+. Go watch the video from yesterday if you have questions on that. But that is where I would start. If you are struggling, if you worked with a bunch of media buyers, if you struggle with media buyers in-house and agencies, and you always have problems with media buying, look at the offer. The best offers in the world, I've seen the worst media buyers be successful with, but the best media buyers in the world can't be successful with a bad offer. Build that amplify your offer. They're not going to fix anything, but again, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire. And then things in a way that teaches you something. Organization is like the most undervalued skill in media buying, where you have to have things organized in a way that you're learning what's working, what's not working, in order for you to learn something from it. Okay, so we have different cadences at different frequencies here. Each week, add new creatives into the account and check your predictive KPIs and pay attention to where ROAS, marketing efficiency ratio, CPA, these numbers are at also, but take them with a grain of salt if you look at those at a weekly level. But I'm really looking at my predictive measures, my lead measures, if you go back to that video, things like CVR, CPC, CPM, these numbers that might predict the success that you'll have at the other end. And then I'm recalibrating my my campaign budgets based off of this. I'm not doing my high level allocations. Hey, I want to spend twice as much on Meta than I do on Google this. But if I have a campaign on Meta that's doing well from these front end numbers, I'll tap up a little bit. If I have campaigns that are doing poorly, I'll tap down on them. Each month, recalibrate. So where your numbers were for the last month, your CAC, your marketing efficiency ratio, were those up, were those down? The change is really important to me. And then reallocate your budgets. A lot of times these things change and your best channels in June, probably are not your best channels today. So I do this like high level recalibration of where am I prioritizing spend to, what strategies are working, what strategies are not working. And then each quarter, make sure your tracking is still accurate. How many sales do I? 3 places I'm tracking them. Find your source of truth, right? Your Shopify store. Shopify is probably your source of truth. Check them against your source of truth and see if you still have confidence in it. And then pick out these high level ideas or concepts that you're going to test. Test something big each month or each quarter. The common mistakes I see is scaling before you're profitable. A lot of times people want to spend, but the numbers don't make sense for it. That's why I always start with the numbers, and knowing your numbers is another, not knowing your numbers is another core mistake. A lot of times I can tell exactly what the work is going to look like from the initial conversations. If someone knows where their CVRs are, where their LTV is, all of these numbers, that tells me there's a machine that's running and we need to just build out a media buying component to it. If someone doesn't know those numbers, then it tells me, hey, there's more of this machine that needs to be built out than just media buying. Don't obsess over platform hacks. I think 5 years ago, 10 years ago, job was hacking the platforms. Now your core offer and your core narratives that you're putting out there in the creative are a lot more important. So I would put a lot more of my brainstorming on that. How could I sell this product differently? How could I improve this offer to make it more compelling for people? That requires an awful lot of thought these days. Another mistake is not having the tracking. Not only do you not know your numbers, you don't have the tools to know your numbers. So make sure that you have tracking that you can trust in. Make sure that you have a varied creative strategy. I said ad fatigue kills scale. Meta prioritizes the number of narratives. So think about different ways that you could package each one and roll that out. And then don't hire a media buyer before you know the math, or hire who can help you figure out the math, because media buying is not a magic wand. It can't just magically fix things. And if you find yourself thinking, okay, I just need to figure out media buying, everything else is working, I just need to figure out media buying, that's a red flag. That to me signifies there's probably something else going on. If you are in that position where media buying is the only problem, that's a symptom of a deeper problem. If media buying was the only problem, media buying wouldn't be the only problem. I said it before, the worst media buyers I've ever worked with have been successful with good promos. So if the media buying, especially if you've had multiple media buyers in there, if multiple folks have not been successful with it, probably there's something else going on, and you should ask more questions about the rest of that process. As always, topics, not this one as much because this is my job and my area of expertise for a long time, but here are the references. Here are sources that influence my thinking on these topics. For all the videos, you'll have a reference here for where some of this content is coming from. And then, yeah, if you have questions, let me know. I'll see you guys.